Discover the hidden neurological reason behind the math struggle your child might be experiencing. In this episode, we're diving into math dyslexia and giving you the tips to turn frustration into success. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tracy Young, OG Tutor Extraordinaire, founder of theliteracykeys.com, and most importantly, mom of a dyslexic daughter. Welcome to my podcast, where you'll discover ways to unlock your child's reading potential. I'll share tips, strategies, and war stories that have happened along the way, because everyone deserves to be able to read. So let's get started. Welcome. Today we're talking about math dyslexia. It often gets lumped in with dyslexia, but it's actually a separate issue, and it's called Dyscalculia. Today we'll dive into what dyscalculia is, how it's diagnosed, and most importantly, what you can do to help your child thrive. If you're a parent of a child who struggles with math, you're in the right place. First, let's start with the pronunciation because it's a bit tricky. I got to be honest, I used to say Dyscalculia until I found out I was saying it wrong. Oops. It's actually pronounced Dyscalculia. If we look at the morphology of the word, we have dys from the Greek meaning difficult, and calculare from the Latin meaning to count. So taken together, the word means difficulty counting. And that's math in a nutshell. So remember, dyscalculia. Now that we can actually say the word, let's talk about what it is. People sometimes refer to the condition as math dyslexia, but that's like comparing apples to oranges. Great if you're making a fruit salad, but we're not. Dyslexia and dyscalculia are two separate things. Dyslexia is difficulty reading. Dyscalculia is difficulty with math. I think people say math dyslexia because you get what they're referring to, and number two, it's impossible to pronounce the word. That is no longer an issue for the listeners who now know how to pronounce the word. Think of dyscalculia as a specific learning disability that affects a person's ability to understand, learn, and manipulate numbers. This is not about being bad at math. It's a variation in the brain's wiring that impacts a person's number sense. It's neurological in nature. Perhaps it might be helpful if I provide an analogy and compare it to color blindness. A colorblind person can see, but their brain processes color differently. You can show them red flashcards all day long, but they'll never see the color red. Well, kind of similar with dyscalculia. No amount of rote memorization or endless flashcards will magically create a fundamental understanding of numbers. A dyscalculic person's brain processes numbers and quantities in a completely different way. So, for example, a child with dyscalculia might struggle to understand that the number 5 represents a group of 5 objects. They also might not grasp that a group of 6 is one more than a group of 5, even if they can learn to count by rote. They often count on their fingers long after their peers have moved on to more advanced mental math. And let's be honest, this is going to lead to significant frustration, math anxiety, and a feeling of being dumb or incapable, which is why understanding and addressing the condition is vital. Now, every person is unique, so the symptoms of dyscalculia can vary from person to person. That said, there are some common signs that you should watch for. Poor number sense. A child might not intuitively understand what numbers mean. For instance, they might have trouble recognizing that 5 is a larger quantity than 3 without counting them out. They might struggle with the ability to instantly recognize the number of objects in a small group, like seeing 2 dots on a domino and knowing it's 2 without having to physically count the dots. Another symptom or something to watch for is difficulty with basic math. Now, this is just more than struggling with hard word problems. It includes trouble with simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. A child may have a very hard time memorizing basic math facts, like their times table. Another manifestation, or something to watch for, a sign, shall we say, is trouble with mental math. A child with dyscalculia often can't do math problems in their head and relies on their fingers to count long after their peers have stopped. Another thing that you may see are challenges with time, money, and measurements. They may find it difficult to tell time on an analog clock, but honestly, a lot of kids are having difficulty telling time. They may have difficulty with counting money or understanding concepts like distance. Now, dyscalculia is not something that is just unique to children, right? Some of these difficulties and challenges can continue to impact daily life and show up in adulthood, such as difficulty managing a budget, balancing a checkbook, or calculating a tip or change. You might see that they're frequently late, that they struggle to read a map, get lost easily, or have a hard time telling left from right. And they might struggle to recall phone numbers, zip codes, or even simple dates and facts. So now that we know how to pronounce the word, and we've talked about some of the signs to look for, how can you test for it? Well, as with most of the dys conditions, a formal diagnosis is made through a comprehensive evaluation by a qualified professional, such as a neuropsychologist. They'll consider the individual's developmental history, classroom performance, and use normative reference standardized tests. These tests look for specific indicators, such as number sense, which is an ability to understand what numbers represent and their relationship to each other. Memorization, the ability of memorization of facts. Are they seeing difficulty recalling basic math facts such as multiplication tables or simple addition? They'll look for accurate and fluent calculations, slow or inaccurate at solving math problems. How about their reasoning and problem-solving ability? Do they see trouble with word problems, understanding math vocabulary, or applying concepts to real-world situations? Spatial reasoning is another area that they will test for. Difficulty with concepts like telling time on a clock, distinguishing left from right, and understanding maps and directions. All right, so some of the things that I mentioned that were warning signs, then they will be going through and looking at it and comparing it to other individuals in the same age group. And they plot everything on a bell-shaped curve. That's why it's so important to have norm-referenced tests. If you suspect your child may have dyscalculia, discuss your concerns with their teacher and a pediatrician to begin a process. The goal of any evaluation is to create a personalized support plan, and it is not about labeling someone. The key thing to understand is that some conditions often coexist. So, for example, a high percentage of individuals with dyslexia also have difficulties with math. Similarly, Dysgraphia which is a difficulty with writing, can also overlap with dyscalculia. I like to think of these as the 3Ds: dyslexia, difficulty reading; dysgraphia, difficulty writing; and dyscalculia, difficulty with math. So a child with dysgraphia may struggle to write numbers clearly, keep their work organized in columns, or even use a pencil effectively, all of which can compound the challenge of a math problem. But you don't have to be dyslexic in order to have dyscalculia. And in fact, about 5% of the population has it. Remember, it's crucial to look at the whole child. Don't be surprised if your child struggles with math and they're connected to the challenges with reading or writing. This comorbidity, the existence at the same time, right, can be teased apart with a comprehensive evaluation that considers all of these areas and provides a complete picture, and hence allows for the most effective support. So all of this brings us to the next step, which is discussing what you, as a listener, can do to help your child or someone you know with dyscalculia. Let's share some of the hands-on strategies. Use manipulatives. Now, manipulatives don't have to be the fancy ones that you buy online, right? What we're trying to do is make math tangible. Instead of just numbers on a page, two-dimensional, use physical objects, Legos, blocks. I recently used dried beans. I was explaining the concept of ratios. We had pinto beans, black beans, kidney beans, right? We needed to we counted, grouped, compared the beans to show the relationship and make it tangible rather than just words and numbers on a piece of paper. Another thing you can do is connect math to daily life. When you're at the grocery store, have your child count items in the cart. Help you compare prices. When you're cooking, let them measure ingredients. All of these are physical, tangible things that you can do with numbers. You want to take and you want to prioritize conceptual understanding over rote memorization. So instead of drilling or trying to drill the multiplication facts with flashcards, which, by the way, doesn't work for someone with dyscalculia, focus on what multiplication actually means. Use visuals to show 3 groups of 4. Use stories to help remember multiplication facts. Create mnemonics highlighting the order of operation. All right? We say Molly sells burritos when we're doing division to remember. I need to multiply, then the order is subtract, then I bring down. So some of these mnemonics can help with the order. Another thing is embrace a growth mindset. Praise your child's efforts, not just the outcome. Remind them that their brain is like a muscle and it gets stronger with practice. Say things like, I know that was a hard problem. I'm so proud of how hard you worked on it. Those are things that can help reduce the frustration. Doesn't eliminate it, but it recognizes their struggles. And lastly, leverage technology and accommodations. Talk to your child's teacher about accommodations such as extended time on tests, access to a quiet space, copy of the teacher's notes, a calculator, graph paper to keep numbers aligned in columns. All of those are things that can be game changers for someone who has dyscalculia. So thank you for joining us on this episode. We want to end by saying that individuals with dyscalculia are a different kind of learner, and with the right support, they can find success in math and in life. So please share this episode with someone who needs to hear this message and write a review. This really helps others find us. Until next time, adieu. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to the Literacy Keys podcast. Follow us on social media, and most importantly, tell a friend. See you next week.